everybody, welcome back to Between Sermons. This is going to be a very interesting episode. Just kind of brace yourself. We're having an awesome conversation before we turn the cameras on, and discovered that Carlton and I are probably the last people to be picked for this topic.
Yes,
for
despite
probably
the sermon
reasons.
Yesterday.
Yeah, which is interesting because you spoke, it was a great message.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in our At the Movie series. We're looking at Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which, can we just appreciate the fact that Guardians of the Galaxy is a great movie.
Fantastic movie. If you haven't seen it, see it.
It saves Marvel in a lot of ways. You know, I get to do Across the Spider-Verse. I think that's another saving moment in franchise history. Whereas Marvel is just kind of, and then those come in and it's like, oh, there's hope.
Great.
But the subject matter, we're talking about friendships.
Yep.
And the reason why we're laughing that this, like, we really should have had somebody else sitting.
And I'm still thinking through it. So this is why we're having a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the dilemma is Carlton and I, neither of us approach friendships the way most people do.
The traditional
like the
way.
Traditional, like, friends are people that get together, they go out to eat, they, text each other all the time.
Right.
They go over to each other's houses, they plan vacations together. Like,
vacations together?
I've done that. Like, I've had those relationships, or I have those relationships. The weird thing is I don't initiate any of those things.
Okay.
Like, I'm almost like a participant in it, right?
Sure.
Like the memes about, introverts don't make friends, they just get adopted by extroverts. like I married an extrovert, and so it's through that relationship that other things happen. So, like, my best friend for pretty much my entire life, he's been my close friend since I was a teenager, still is, lives in a totally different state. I see him, if I'm lucky, maybe once a year. And yet I would still, if somebody's like, who's your best friend? I'm like, oh, Terry is. Like, yeah, that's my guy.
It's pretty good.
Like, we don't ever see each other. We did do a family vacation together, though. We, got a cabin in Tennessee, and, it was great.
Man, that's intimate.
But I've got no problem with those relationships, like those friendship levels.
Yeah.
But I'm not the one driving those things.
Right.
So I guess it's one of those where I'd love to get your perspective. But what does friendship look like in Carlton's world?
Yeah. Right now.
Yeah. Who's your best friend?
I don't have one.
Okay.
My wife.
Your wife is your best friend? My best friend too, I guess.
My wife qualifies for a lot of
Solar Terry. I don't know which.
These types of categories of relationship in me. So if I exclude my wife, I would say I don't have a best friend. Mm-hmm. And that's...
Do you have any friends?
On purpose, intentional. It qualifies you to be Carlton. Do I have any friends? I have associates. I have people that
What stops you from being able to call them friends?
I think the level of communication, the level of depth in the relationship, the frequency in which we see each other.
Okay.
Man, I don't want to say the care that I have.
but kind of the care.
Yeah, I don't. It's not that I don't care.
Yeah.
It's that I'll say it like this. I'm really focused on what I'm doing. I'm really focused on my family. The fulfillment that I get in my wife and my marriage and my family is so great, along with the fulfillment and joy that I get in my career path, at church. Like, having friends to me would almost be a liability.
Okay.
And so...
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I think here's what's really weird is you and I are the same person in way too many ways. Mm-hmm. And so that makes this a little bit weird dynamic.
Yes.
But I think that...
terrible for the staff.
Yeah, it really is. That's why we brought on Asa. We're like, we need somebody that's not us. But so here's the thing. I think to a degree, I would say it's semantics. I think what you have with associates is what I would define as friends.
Okay.
I think that just because you and I aren't on that other spectrum of friendship and, it's dinner parties every weekend and it's, constantly going out and doing things. Like, I'll do those things. I'm usually not the initiator of it. And not to, like, freak anybody out. Like, I don't dislike those things. Like, it's not like when a friend is like, hey, we should go out to dinner. I'm like, oh, God, no, please. Like, I'm Oh, cool.
Yeah, I would almost
never,
at a point of disliking it. A
so
dinner
I shouldn't
party.
invite you to dinner.
You should.
I'll just
I
invite
guess it just
Khadijah.
depends on the people. Yeah,
I'll just
invite my
invite
wife.
Khadijah.
I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm a strange person. See, I don't like commitment and heavy communication, and I think that's what friends bring.
Which is
Commitment
interesting, though,
and heavy
that
communication.
commitment, because I mean, didn't you start dating your wife like in high school?
Yes, because I
You've been
knew I
committed
needed
to that
a wife.
one person your entire life, and you're like, I'm not good with commitment.
Well, she's nearly the same person.
Okay.
So, in a sense, she's way better than I am at maintaining relationships.
So she has friends?
Yes, she has friends,
Yeah,
yes.
my wife has friends.
And then she reminds me to communicate with people.
My wife does the same thing.
Yes.
She's like, hey, when's the last time you sent a message to so-and-so?
Right.
I'm like, never.
And she'll bug me about it too. Did you send the text too?
Yep. My wife does the same thing.
So, but for me, commitment and communication, I hate my phone.
Yeah.
Like the purpose of my phone is like documents and email and Google Sheets.
Yeah. Purpose of my phone is internet.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
YouTube, research,
Yeah.
Bible app,
Yeah.
everything but making phone calls.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't do the phone call thing. That's a
Yeah.
little bit of the social anxiety thing too. Like if the phone rings, like I get a little like weird panic attack
Yeah.
like in that moment. I'm like, who is it? What do they need? What do they want? What if I say something
Right.
dumb? Yeah.
And so that's why I say, and you know, listen, everyone, I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just expressing who I am. It's also liability.
Okay.
Like I find close friendships to be a liability
Okay, walk me through that. I don't know what you mean.
because I feel like it's me pouring into someone. Man, this sounds so terrible, especially as a pastor here. Like,
Sorry, we'll try and clean it up.
we will. I promise we will. But what I mean is, and I think I mentioned this in the sermon, that friendship is a two-way street. At least maybe that was this morning in the staff meeting, the devos.
Yeah.
Friendship is a two-way street. And so I would like to receive as much as I give. And that sounds selfish as I'm saying it. But it's like when it's me pouring out, it's not that that's bad.
Yeah.
It's just that let's call that what it is. Let's call that coaching or mentorship or something else. Because it's not friendship.
Yeah.
You know, and
I can see
so
that.
I think that's where it is. I don't think I've had long-term relationships with anyone that I feel like I could receive from continuously.
Yeah.
I receive from people in seasons and in moments, sure, but continuously.
Yeah.
Even if it's not, you know, significant pouring out and pouring into, but even the trading off of entertainment, of just, you know, I said it in the sermon, nonsensical entertainment.
Yeah.
I haven't had that person for long stretches of time to say that they're friends.
But you don't feel like you're missing that element in your life.
Not at all.
Because you can have nonsensical fun with your wife.
Or myself.
son, or
I grew up
yourself.
as the only child.
Maybe that's
It
what
was
the
just me
issue
and my
is.
mom, and my mom was kind of there. I mean, she was present in my life, but you know, I was independent way too early in my childhood. And so I
Maybe that's
learned
the issue here.
I learned how to entertain myself, video games, you know.
Yeah.
Zelda kept me busy for years. I tell Beth, our finance clerk, I said, TV raised me.
Oh, we know the amount of Sesame Street that you can quote at any given time is
Yes. But I mean, like,
so that's the
Yeah.
whole only child thing is interesting because so I don't have that, but I do, which is
Yes,
a weird
'cause
thing
your
to say. 'Cause
siblings
I'm
aren't
the youngest of
peers.
three, but my siblings, like my sister's like 8 years older than me.
right.
It's like 7.5. My brother's 8.5 years older than me, or something like that. I can't do the math because I'm not you. But anyways, they're both so much older that it felt like I was raised as an only child.
Yeah.
Like I was in like junior high when they're off in college or living adult lives. So like the parts of my childhood that I really remember well.
Because by the time you came of age, at least at a younger age, your sister was a teenage girl.
Yeah, she wasn't hanging out.
Doesn't have the most that she did with you was punch you in the arm or throw you down the stairs or something.
For both my sister and my brother. Like, we didn't have like hangout times and stuff like that. So like, I think that to a degree, I did kind of grow up as an only child. In a sense,
especially your high school years.
100%.
Right.
And so we've got that in common. We're both in ministry, which that's not even the purpose of this podcast, but ministry friendship is so much different than non-ministry friendship. And for pastors, because, every time you get with somebody that, this might be a friendship relationship, but you're a pastor. So you walk in the room and they're like, I need mentoring, or I need coaching, or I need counseling.
And that's what I mean by friendship being a two-way street is that usually when people see me, they're not necessarily looking at me for friendship as more of pastoral advice or, spiritual guidance or something like that. And so that kind of throws it a little bit too. I also do not invite that kind of relationship. Maybe because I'm socially awkward or a number of things. I'm not sure what it is, but like I don't go to the next stage or the next step in early communication or early relationships. Yeah. And so it's not inviting for people to say, I'm going to give Carlton a call or go hang out with him. Right. Because I kind of shut things down at small talk. And
I can't even
I don't know, like
small talk is so awkward.
Yeah, it's the worst thing ever. Like I don't know.
And this is that's probably the next level of challenge that we have, I guess, to overcome in all this is that we're both introverts who are socially awkward.
Yeah,
like I've been able to own that most of my life.
Yeah. Bianca used to laugh at me so much. She would purposely introduce me to somebody and then walk away and watch me. And I would be like, Bianca, what are you doing?
Yeah. I still remember like going to like conferences. Like every pastor that goes to a conference is like there to network. They're like there to connect with people and meet people. And so like I'd come back from conferences and like our executive pastor would be like, so who did you connect with? Who did you meet? And I'm like, nobody. Like, I avoided everyone.
You ran back to your hotel.
I went on a conference with Pastor Sam Hamster one time, and like we're getting off the plane, and like I literally had like noise canceling headphones. Like I couldn't even tell you what ethnicity or what gender the person sitting next to me was on the flight. Like I was just locked in.
And Pastor Sam's probably made 15 friends.
We're walking off the plane, and this old couple is like, so hopefully we can do dinner on Tuesday.
Yes.
I'm like, how do you know those people? And he's like, what do you mean? They were sitting next to me. I'm like, they're inviting you to dinner. Like, what did you do on the flight? And that's just how he operates.
Yeah, that natural ability to connect with people. No. Like he's got it.
Yeah, we don't.
No, not at all.
We don't. So apologies to anybody that's ever tried.
But the thing is, like, we know how to be friendly in a moment or in communication or even when we go out with people. Like we know how to do that. Yeah. And I'm not. It's not fake or phony or anything. Like I genuinely am enjoying the moment.
Yeah, and you genuinely care about people.
Absolutely,
I've watched you deal with like benevolence requests or people that come in that are hurting. And the attention, the care that you're able to give to them.
Right.
100%. And that's why I think that part of this is just semantics. Like I would disagree with you when you said you don't have friends, you just have acquaintances. I think it's the same thing for guys like us.
Right.
Like the acquaintance level is friendship for us. Like. So for anybody that's listening to the podcast right now that's like, man, I thought Carlton was my friend.
No, I am.
Right?
Yes. I don't want to make it sound bad, but I don't have that innate emotion or desire to say I want to connect with somebody at a particular day, at a particular time, at a particular place. Yeah. Like that's just not in me. Like, and it's not that I'm a homebody. I love doing things. Like my wife and I, we do things like the summer's packed. Like we're just doing stuff all the time. But it's like my son told me, he was like, man, is it a problem that I don't like people? And I said, yes and no. You know, we kind of went through that. And he was like, you know what would be ideal for me? Because he loves like the metropolitan areas. He loves big cities. He likes to be on the scene and at an event. He said, if I can have a condo in the middle of downtown, but live by myself.
I can see that.
And that's like, man, that's how my brain. That's what's happening in my brain.
Yeah.
I'm in a condo by myself.
Yeah. You just want the
in
opposite.
the
He wants the
midst of
city. You
people.
want to be in the middle of the wilderness.
Yeah, I want to be hunting elk in the Rockies somewhere. Like that's where I want to be. Well, I mean, I could take either. I could take the Rockies hunting elk, or I could be on the coast. But by myself, there's nobody there in this glorified imagination of mine.
I'm curious. Is this something that changed for you? Like, so if I was talking to 18-year-old Carlton, would he be saying the same thing? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. Now I was popular, quote unquote popular, but that doesn't necessarily mean I had lasting friends. Had one friend, Steve, but he was just like me, so that worked. Yeah. He passed in 2017, so I didn't pick up anybody to replace him. Yeah. And it's not that it's not that no one could, can't replace him. Yeah. It's just that I haven't, like, my energy hasn't shifted to find someone or befriend someone.
Yeah, I think that's that similar for me. Like, thankfully, my friend didn't pass away. He just moved away. Yeah. And it was one of those where it's like, I know that the relationship isn't going to be the same. Like,
right.
Because like it's one of those weird things. Like growing up, like I would spend as much time at his house as he would spend at mine. Like it would just, like holidays and stuff, it was like, okay, I'm going to run over to your house so I can grab some of your mom's mac and cheese because like I just need to be there.
Right.
Like, so like there was this dynamic where like we were super close. And then he moves away. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, I probably should replace him as like the closest friend. But I don't have the energy for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and going back to when I was 18, I went to Oral Roberts University, and I enjoyed not knowing anyone and not trying to establish friendships. Mm-hmm. I mean, you would see the same, and not too many people were taking accounting classes. So you would see that core group of people every day, and you would be friendly with them, and you would, have group study time and that kind of thing. But I really enjoyed being on a college campus and not knowing anyone. Yeah. And I think that was just great for me. I think,
It's kind of how I drifted through high school,
Yeah.
Man, how did we end up in ministry?
I even joined the Black Student Union.
See,
not joined. I say that. Well, you didn't join the Black Student Union in Colorado? Was there any black people in Colorado?
One.
And I went to the first meeting, and I realized that it was a social club, which is appropriate. Mm-hmm. But I think I was looking for, like, is there any problems on campus that I'm not aware of that I should be aware of? Yeah. And is this going to be my way of getting information? Because, I'm a black kid on a college campus, predominantly white college. And once I realized that they had no issues, because Oral Roberts did a very good job of maintaining diversity amongst their staff, and
that's great.
Yeah, the leaders of the university.
Middle of Oklahoma, you probably don't.
Yeah, the dean, the chaplain, they had it was very mixed, so it was great. So once I realized there wasn't a problem, I didn't want the social aspect. Yeah, and I said, I don't need to be here. And that's not something that like I was processing in my head. I processed it in hindsight, but at the moment I was like, well, there's no purpose. Yeah. Or no like path of a goal, so I don't need to do this.
And here's where we preface this by saying this is going to be a really weird podcast because we are not normal. And
yes, I'm glad we recognize that.
And this should not apply to everyone that's listening.
Yes,
like I think that there is great value in friendships. I think that people need to embrace, especially godly friendships.
Absolutely.
I think what we're talking about here is the fact that we view those relationships a little bit differently than the average person. And so like there's still like there's aspects of what we lump in this phrase of friendship that we categorize in multiple ways. So like the mentoring mentee relationship. Some people just call that friend. Right. That there's somebody that you are looking out for. There's somebody that they're pointing out the blind spots in you. They're like, that's my friend.
Right.
For me, like I've got pastors that do that for me, and there are some pastors that I would call them friend, but we're not going out to eat together, or we're not playing sports together. Like the relational dynamic that people refer to as friendship, I think is just a little bit different for us. So like that mentoring relationship, the coaching thing, even the social aspect, like we're constantly doing social things, my wife and I, with other people. a lot of that for us is ministry. Some of it is just purely for fun.
Right.
But even then, it's usually initiated either by my wife or by the other party. Right. So it's like, I'm the spectator, or I'm the, I don't know. Am I the third wheel?
Right.
It's a bunch of it. Like I'm there. Like I'm not complaining. I'm not upset about it. Like, but it's not necessarily something that I go out of my way. So for anybody listening, it's like, man, how come Brent never calls me to hang out? Yeah, I don't call anybody to hang out.
Yeah, no.
It's just not part of my wiring.
And that's fine.
I guess. I think so.
Right?
So, and here's
because
where,
I do believe that there's growth that's needed. Like, true. I do understand, especially studying and doing research and putting together the sermon.
Yeah.
I saw a huge chasm in my life. Yeah. Because I believe I was looking into the camera teaching, but the camera could have been a mirror.
Yeah.
So
you're preaching to yourself.
Yes.
And we'll get into that in a little bit. So I think the dilemma or the challenge that we have to talk through is there's a healthiness to our view. Mm-hmm. There can also be an unhealthiness to our view.
Right.
So part of this is fueled by the fact that we do have good relationships with people, right? Where
staff,
where you're mentoring, you're coaching, you're being mentored, you're being coached, you're caring for one another.
Yes.
If something goes wrong in my family, I know the people that I can call and lean on.
Right.
So like the world would define that as friends. Right. Which that's what they are. They're right. Friends. It's a weird dynamic for us.
Yeah.
But we have the healthy relationships. If you are in a place where you don't have friendships in any definition,
yes,
and you don't have
correct.
Right, the people that we're talking about, that like if you don't have anybody that on your worst day, you know who you're calling. Like on my absolute worst day, I've got a dozen people that I know I could call.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And that makes a huge difference.
Right.
And some of the people that I would call, it would literally be the first phone call they've gotten from me in years. And yet I know the minute they pick up the phone and we start talking, they're right there with me.
Right. But the fulfillment that I get from staff, I mean, I share an office with 5 or 6 other people. Mm-hmm. We have so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, you get
sometimes too much fun.
Yeah. It's like,
but we get fulfillment
today?
there. Me and my son, especially him becoming a teenager, we've become closer. Yeah. Our conversations are getting, we're not closer in age, of course. Our age difference stays the same. But as he matures and gets older and goes into adulthood, becomes a man, our conversations are more in line.
Yeah. I
get fulfillment with my wife. And so, I feel like those areas of my life have filled in the gaps of what, I guess a normal person would say, okay, Carlton, these are some areas that you're missing in your life.
Yeah.
I sit across from Beth. Beth and I have been working together for over 13 years.
Yeah.
We have so much fun together. We get so fulfilled with each other that I leave work full on relationship.
Yep.
And so I don't need to leave work and then find relationship or find friendship.
You're not feeling an unhealthy isolation.
Right. Yes.
Right? And guys like us, because we're introverts, because of all that, we can isolate really easily, really quickly.
Yeah.
And feel okay in that. What's good for us is the fact that we are interacting with people on a regular basis.
Yes.
And so we're not isolated. But yeah, I think that for somebody that's listening right now that's like, I don't have healthy relationships, or they're saying, I don't want friends because people are stupid and people hurt me and I just want to keep people away from me.
Yeah.
That's unhealthy.
Right.
So part of it is you got to understand your personality type. There's some people out there that need 50 friends.
Yeah.
There's some people that need 5. There's some people that need 1,
mm-hmm.
right? And there's people like us that we define those things a little bit differently.
Right.
We find them in different places. So I've got people that I could label them friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they would label it as a friend.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so how do we avoid this becoming a negative thing in our lives though? How do you, are there moments when Carlton McCarthy is like, you know what? I've been really, really distant from people. That's probably not good. I haven't had anybody that's able to speak into my life in this season.
Yeah.
If I'm dealing with a sin issue and I need somebody that can help encourage me through it or whatever, have you ever had moments where you're like, this isn't good?
Yeah, I think though I've had really good pastors in my life. And so like I know that in my Rolodex, up to in the front of it, and not in alphabetical order, there's 3 or 4 pastors that I can go to that understand. Like us 3 in leadership, me, you, and Asa here at the church.
Peter, James, and John,
Peter,
as
James, and
Sue
John.
refers to it.
Yeah. Like I absolutely know that I could come to you all in a judgment-free zone for help if I need anything.
Yeah.
The other thing too is that I got accountability in my wife.
Yeah.
My wife will say, Carlton, you haven't reached out to, or you need to talk to this person about this thing.
I have that conversation with Soul like on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Where she's like, hey, did you text so-and-so? No. What's going on? Well, it's their birthday. You need to say happy birthday.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Khadijah will be like, yes, birthdays, like just like, hey, you haven't talked to whomever in a while. And like she may be identifying something that I need or something that she sees in our relationship or in the house. And she may say, hey, this person can probably speak into Carlton's life in that area. Why doesn't Carlton reach out to that person just to say hello? Yeah. And then that hello turns into having breakfast or lunch or something to that effect. And then I get a release because I can share life with someone in a moment, and that fulfills me. Yeah. Now that relationship is not a continuous, like that level of communication or that face-to-face relationship is not continuous. We're not planning the next week and the next week and the next week and the next month. But in those moments in time, I do have people that I can go to and talk to that I know have my back and don't do me any harm.
That's good. I like it. So are you just a total hypocrite? Sunday you preach a whole message on the value and importance of friends, and then you sit on the podcast on Monday morning as we're recording this.
Say I don't have any friends.
You're like, I don't have any of that stuff.
No, not at all. Because I think that there is things in faith that we need to be invested in. Because more than anything, we need to be transformed. But part of the transformation process is understanding where you are and understanding your personality and character traits to know where you need to be. Okay, this is who I am today. This is what my faith tells me needs to happen. Okay, how do I move from this place to this place? And then you study and you pray and you follow the leading of the Holy Spirit, and then he can guide you out of the place that you're in and put you where he wants you to be. And so I think that having a sermon like that is so beneficial, because I never want to be the one to say, well, that's just who I am. I don't have any friends. I don't like people. That's just who I am. You're just going to have to take it. No, we have to be transformed. We have to be transformed in the likeness of Christ. Yeah. And so the sermon yesterday really helped me reflect on some of the areas that, I need to work on in my life. I even pointed out, my social awkwardness. Drax throws the ball at the alien girl and hits her in the face. And I'm like, that's how a lot of my interactions start with a kickball to the face. And so I'm like, okay, how do I mend that, or how do I transition?
Overcome that bad first impression?
Yes, like how do I do that? And so I think that it's very good for me to understand where I need to be, and that's where my faith comes in. There's so many things in our faith, so many disciplines, so many principles and things in the Word that we are not living, pursuing, we're not doing today. Yeah. And I think that the Holy Spirit, he points out to us like, hey, here's a scripture or a Bible story or a topic that you should be studying, because there may be a gap or area in your life that needs help or needs to be filled. And so I think the sermon yesterday was great, because it just lets me know, okay, Carlton, you need to start making a transition from here to here. And then I like what you're saying early in this podcast is that, maybe we can redefine some of the relationships that we have, and not be so much of saying, okay, I don't have friends, when there's actually people who actually love me and care for me and want to have community with me and relationship with me that I also love. Yeah.
That's what I was going to jump in with. That is that I agree with you that, a lot of times when we're preaching, and I'll even say this sometimes, like, hey, I'm just preaching to myself right now. I'm just having a conversation with myself. Right. You're just blessed to be able to listen to me talk to myself. But I think that there's an element of that. But I think a bigger element of this is why I wouldn't say that you're being a hypocrite by saying, don't really have friends and y'all need to have them, is because it's semantics. You do have friends.
Right.
Because if you quantify friendship as having people in your life that care about you, that you care about, Carlton checks all those boxes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You absolutely. A lot of those people you just call coworkers.
Yes.
Right. And we're like, the world would say, oh, when he says coworker, that's a real callous, like cold.
Yes.
Because I don't really like the people that I work with. They're just coworkers. But it's like, no, like when we have like a lunch at work.
Yes.
Like you're laughing and smiling and having a great time.
We went bowling last week.
We went bowling last week.
That was the best time ever.
It's only because you won.
Absolutely.
But so like when you say, oh, I have coworkers, for a lot of people, they hear that and they think that's distant. But for you, that's people that care about you.
Yes, we're not in cubicles. Right. Yes, absolutely.
And so I think that part of it is just the definition of
I need to redefine
right? Like
everything in my life.
Yeah, are your coworkers your friends in this scenario? I would say yes.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
Your coworkers are your friends.
I really care about my coworkers.
That's not true for everybody
right.
where they work. I mean, there's people listening to this podcast right now that they're like, man, I have coworkers. Like, they are not friends. They are associates.
The guy who works in the cubicle around the corner from me. Right.
Your feet are too big, man. I keep kicking your shoes, man.
13s.
But yeah, I think that there is just something important to understand of what is the ultimate goal of this. You know, when we say you need to have friends in your life, what we're really saying is you need to have people in your life that you care about, that care about you.
Yeah.
And so however you define that, whatever that looks like, wherever you find that I think that finding that within the context of church is the most important thing, because you want people that are on the same level spiritually, or at least have a desire to be on the same level spiritually. So if all of your relationships, all of those people that care about you, that you care about, are outside of the faith, then what happens when you're having a crisis of faith?
Right.
They're going to care for you and encourage you outside of the faith,
right,
instead of pulling you into it. And so, like, I think for people that are like, man, I got a lot of friends from high school, from college, from work, all these people, but none of them are Christian. Like, that's probably not a healthy place to be in.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think also too, going back to the sermon, I think these are the sermons that I'm most invested in when it's an area of my life that needs growth.
Yeah.
And it's like, when I was going through it, I couldn't believe the Bible said so much about relationships and friendships. I mean, like, you know that Christianity is about relationships, but then when you actually dive into it, when Jesus says, he tells his disciples, you're not my servants, you're my friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Jesus, that was amazing. That was beautiful.
Such a huge shift, too.
Yeah. And it's like he saw them as friends. But I, at least, you know, I don't want to say we. I'll say I get so wrapped up in the dynamics of their struggle with this new theology, this radical way of thinking, this really, it seemed like it's anti-Jewish, but it's still Jewish in the same sense. It's like, okay, in the start of the early church and what Jesus was preparing them for, it really felt like a mentoring type relationship. But there was mentoring and friendship because Jesus saw them as friends. Yeah. And I was just like taken aback by that scripture. And I was like, wow, like Jesus was on a friendship level with them. And of course, because how could you get these random group of guys to take on such a radical mission that hasn't been seen before, that's unheard of? You know, you have messianic prophecy from hundreds of years ago to thousands of years ago, and now is the moment for me to follow a carpenter. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And it's like, okay, how did he forge these relationships? Yeah. He became their friend.
There's another parallel to that in that, so when I was studying for God the Father, I kept running into this, that God is actually referred to as Father in the Old Testament. But it was a sense of birthing a nation.
Right.
So it wasn't a relational, like it really was father, not dad.
Right.
Right, in the Old Testament. And then all of a sudden Jesus starts saying, you know, daddy, right?
Yes.
Abba, Father. Like there's a shift
that
happens where it's like, okay, you understood God the Father. What you really need to understand is that there's a relational dynamic to this.
Right.
And that's what we see all throughout Scripture, is this relationship vitality. That relationship is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where, Jesus calls us friends. It's where we're called sons. It's where he says, if you love me, keep my commands. And by this one thing, right? Well, first of all, the commands are to love one another.
Right.
And then by this one thing, people are going to know that you're my followers by how you love each other.
Right.
Right. And so it's really hard for us to say that we love somebody that we're not friends with.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
That we don't have that kind of dynamic relationship with, where it's like, I don't know. Sometimes we get in trouble doing the whole "I love you, I just don't like you," and it's like, dude, that doesn't really work.
That doesn't work.
that doesn't really work. Like if you like them, you love them. If you love them, you like them.
Right.
That's kind of a way of saying, well, I know the Bible tells me I have to love you, but I don't right now. But I don't want to be a sinner, so I'm just gonna say I love you. I just don't like you. Like, it's foolishness. Like, stop it.
And it's funny that it's not funny, but the Bible puts so much emphasis on loving each other.
Yeah.
That Jesus equates it to loving God. He says, if you love Father God, you should be loving each other in the same way. Yeah. Not only does he liken it to loving God, okay, but he's like, okay, even if you don't get that, love them like you love yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, because you may have a distance spiritually from God. You may be trying to, maybe have a gap in your relationship or rebuilding that relationship with the Father. And so you understand the concept of loving people like you love God, but you may not be in that place fully yet. But guess who you do love on a day-to-day basis? Unless, there's something wrong. You love yourself.
Yeah. I think even when you don't fully love yourself, you still kind of love yourself.
Yeah.
Like there's still a self-preservation that happens.
You're still taking breaths. You're still eating 3 squares a day.
Yep.
You're still clothing.
You're still trying to do what's best for you.
Yes.
And I think that's what is really defined by love others the way you love yourself.
Right.
It's like you want what's best for you.
Yeah.
Right? You want your dreams to be fulfilled. You want to have joy. You want to experience great things in life. You want all these things for yourself, even on your worst day, even when you're like, I don't deserve this, and I'm a horrible person, or I'm a failure, or even when you're having that negative spiral, even when there's mental health issues involved, like there's still a level of I still want what's best for me. And then we take that and we apply it to others.
Yeah.
So we say, I want what's best for Carlton.
Right.
I want what's best for Ruben over there.
Right.
Like I want what's best for this other person.
Right.
And that is biblical friendship. And so we kind of started off by saying we don't really have friends, but the reality is we do.
Yeah.
We've got a whole bunch of them.
Right.
Those relationships just don't look like what maybe, somebody in high school, college, those early days of my friends are the people I go hang out with all the time.
Yeah.
That's not how it looks for us.
Yeah.
It's not saying that there's anything wrong with it still looking like that. I mean, you could be 50 and still be like, yeah, I get together with my friends every weekend for golf.
Yes.
Like, that's awesome.
When I got on Facebook for the 2 months that I was on Facebook, I was like, how do people have so many friends? Like, I was at like 78 or something, like just trying to break 80. And, I have 60 something cousins. So the other people were like coworkers and like, whoever else. Yeah. So I was like, how do people have so many friends?
Because the definition of friend.
It defined the connection as friend.
Yeah.
And I would be like, how does this person have 2,000 friends? Like, this is insane. And it's like, well, no, Carlton, what you're qualifying as a friend and what we're qualifying as a friend
two different things.
Is
These are people
different.
you know
in
some way.
Right.
Or know somebody that knows them.
Right. So I do need to understand in myself that I see relationships differently. Or I have friends, but it's a different type of relationship than someone would consider a traditional friendship. Yeah. I also probably need to redefine those relationships and call it what it is. They're friends. Yeah. Absolutely. And then the areas or the gaps that I have in relationships, I certainly need to be transformed because I'm pursuing my faith. And my faith tells me that I should have friends and that I should be loving people.
So there was something you said a long time ago, like very beginning of this podcast about worrying that like you're saying you're not selfish, right? But it's a two-way street. And I would say you're not selfish in that. It's that you want it to match. Like whatever you pour into it, you want that to be what you receive.
Yes.
And so it's not selfish because you know that you're not capable of pouring in at the level that you would want to receive.
Yeah.
So you're like, I kind of back off from some of those things. And I get that. I think that there is a dynamic where there is this give and take in relationships. And I can admit, like, I've had friendships that fell apart. Like there's people I'm not really in contact with today, not because I'm mad at them, not because we got in a fight or anything, but I know that they needed me to reach out. And for some reason I didn't.
Right.
And
right.
and so I have regret from that, like knowing that what they needed, I wasn't able to give them, right? Like they needed somebody that was calling them up saying, hey, let's hang out. And they got tired of always being the person calling and saying, hey, let's hang out. Not understanding that, like my dynamics, my interaction with people, like they were looking for something that it's weird for me to try and give.
So do you do what you feel?
That's where I need growth, right? Like I need to go to a place where, like, if I recognize that this person needs something, then I need to change. But I think what the challenge for me is like the chasm from where I am to where the average person is with that stuff. It's like it's such a huge chasm that until we're sitting at a podcast talking about this, it's not in my mind.
Yeah, like I
I'm
said
not thinking about it
before the podcast, I have an event scheduled on my calendar for this weekend.
Yeah. For you, yourself,
for just me. Yeah, it's not an invite on it at all. And it was thoughtless. It was just like, I want to go do this.
Yeah.
But there's nothing in me that says I want to go do this with someone.
Yeah. Why don't you ever invite me to go shoot out with you?
Absolutely.
We're friends, Carlton. I thought we were friends.
Man, you write a sermon every week, and it takes 30 hours to write a sermon, and you don't write it during the workday. So.
Yeah, most of the time. Yeah. I mean, so like I'm going out with friends on Friday night. We're going downtown or grabbing dinner and going to a show.
Nice, really nice. Hey,
I do things with people. I think everybody that's friends with me though at this point has recognized who Brent is in a friendship.
What happens when you go out to dinner?
Like I am absolutely the guy that you can call no matter what, whatever you're going through.
Absolutely,
like,
yes.
I'm the guy you call. Yes. You call me, and we'll talk. I had a friend going through some stuff. This was years ago. He called me at like 2 a.m, and like I answer the phone, and I'm out of it, and he's crying, and I hear his tears on the phone, and immediately I'm up, and I'm talking with him the rest of the night. Like that's the kind of person I am.
Right.
But if you're waiting for me to make that phone call, you're waiting for the wrong guy.
So we've grown to have compassion for people.
Yeah. It's a good way to put it.
So what's the problem? The commitment, the long-term commitment, the initiation.
We're broken people, Carlton.
Who hurt us?
We are broken people. I think that my introversion, my social awkwardness, small talk is just so weird for me. Like it's an active. So like on Sundays, like there's a part of me that's just like an active.
I was gonna say you're a lead pastor.
Like I'll walk the lobby. I'll walk the sanctuary.
It's a good sized church, and it's growing.
There's many times though that like you'll see me like I'll have like 4 or 5 conversations with somebody, and then I go back into my office. I take a drink of water. And then I get a text message from my wife saying, hey, where are you? There's some people in the lobby who want to talk with you. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
Right.
And I go back out. And like I hope that this doesn't make somebody look at me differently or poorly because
I hope they're laughing with us, not at us.
Or not getting mad at us.
That's true.
I don't want to go to a church where the pastor doesn't care about people. Please don't hear that.
Right.
I do care about people. I care about people deeply. What we're talking about is just that introversion.
But there's also fruit too, though. Like Pastor Asa was like, Carlton, you got to stop going out the backstage door to the office. I'm like right after service ends, like I beeline.
Yeah.
Like
I do the same thing, but I do it as a shortcut.
Yes.
Because if I have to wait in the line.
Right. Yeah. You take the Pastor Jerry route.
Yeah.
Pastor Jerry used to go outside.
Pastor Jerry goes like out and around to the front. I don't do that one. I just go through the offices and come out the green team.
So Pastor Ace is like, Carlton, you have to go to the lobby. Like just go to the lobby. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll go to the lobby.
And that was a good friend seeing a blind spot.
Yes, the blind spot.
See,
there you go.
have friends, Carlton.
And I went to the lobby, and I got fulfillment talking to the guys in the lobby. Yeah. Like, you guys are out here every Sunday in the lobby? They're like, what are you talking about? Where are you? You're the problem. And so, I think it was just like somebody pushing me to that space.
Yeah.
And like the interaction that I have with the guys, you know, with Mike and Ken and James and, you know, Federal, and you just name the guys. They're out there and having a good time, talking in the lobby. And I'm like, man, this is a great moment. Like, I have to appreciate those moments of friendship and, you know, just being out there with the guys in the lobby. And
I think what we're getting at here, the moral of this lesson is it does require some intentionality.
Yeah.
Even for guys like us, even for somebody else who's listening to the podcast going, man, I'm right there with you. Like, I'm a Carlton, I'm a Brent, I'm an introvert, I'm socially awkward. You know, I don't really like interacting with people. I hate small talk.
Yeah.
Cool. Still got to be intentional.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like there still has to be some level of effort being made. Yeah. And especially when you do get a group of people that you're not always saying no. Like that's one of the things that I have to be intentional with. Like Sol and I have talked about it before. We're like, we had to say no to a bunch of things because of our schedule. Like we literally could not do it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like the one free day where we could do it. We're like, we're exhausted from all of the days where we had to say no.
Yeah. That
we wanted to say no. But we're like, you know what? It's been a month. It's been a while. This person really needs that connection. We're gonna intentionally step out and do this, even though part of us just really doesn't want to.
Right.
And so I think that's the challenge for people like us is to make sure that there is still that intentionality to it, and to make sure that we do have those relationships where we are caring for people and they're caring for us. Because if we don't, this is sound really harsh, but I'm going to stand by it. If you don't have people in your life that you care about and that care about you, you're not a good Christian.
Yeah.
That's as direct as I could say it. But if Jesus repeatedly tells us to love one another, then if we're not,
I mean, we're about to go into James, and these are the things that makes our faith complete. We have to be doers.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And so I do think that friendship, however you define that, if it's colleagues and coworkers and acquaintances and mentors and mentees and coaches and, however you want to define that, fine, cool. You need to have people in your life that you care about and that care about you.
Yeah, and you might need to examine how you're being fulfilled. Like I talked about our staff here. I get so much fulfillment from my staff that I need to redefine that relationship. They're not my coworkers; those are my friends.
Yeah.
And then understand.
You just happen to work together.
Yeah, and I can't go out there in the world and say, "Oh, I don't have any friends."
Yeah.
It's like, no, I do have friends.
Yeah.
I need to redefine the relationships that I have with people.
It's a little weird because you sign their paychecks.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
you're
that's
paying
the nature
to have
of friends.
No. How sad is that, Carlton?
Yeah, I know.
You have to
Would
buy
they
your
be
friends.
my friends if that wasn't the case?
So messed up.
Yeah. But this is
I'd still
good.
be your
I think
friend.
this is absolutely, man. We have a lot in common, and one of those things in common is that we don't want to
hang out
with each other.
We'd be perfect to hang out if it wasn't for the fact that the number one thing we have in common is that we don't want to hang out.
I don't know if we would say anything to each other.
Yeah.
And that would be okay.
Yeah. Hey, next Marvel movie, we'll just go. We'll take the boys.
We can't say.
Yeah,
next Marvel
can't say that
movie.
anymore. You used to be able to say that.
Or Star Wars.
And then Madam Web came out. And it's not worth it.
Yes.
All right, so with an asterisk on there.
All right. Okay. We'll figure it out.
Okay, so for somebody listening to this, they're not us. They're like, no, friendships are super important to me, but they're in a place right now where like they just don't have healthy friendships. Like, what can they do? Is there a way to take an unhealthy friendship and turn it into a healthy friendship? Do you got to just kind of cut some people off and start fresh?
Yep.
And if so, how do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to understand and recognize that not every friendship you have is going to be lifelong. Mm-hmm. Like lifelong friendships are wonderful. They're great. But there's some people in your life that are in your life for a season. Yeah. I think I said this in a sermon, season, a reason, or forever. Yeah. And there's some people that are going to be in your life forever.
Yeah.
But you recognize, okay, I'm maturing out of this relationship, or God has got me on a different path, and this relationship will either turn into a liability or hinder me or hold me back from the plans that God has for me. Yeah. And then, if there are your friend in the moment, these are hard conversations to have. But you may, need to have that conversation. It's hard to organically stop hanging out with somebody, because they're going to be like, hey, what's wrong? What's going on? But I think God wants us to be honest. Yeah. And sometimes that honesty can be a bit of evangelism. Like, hey, I feel like the direction of my life that, these are the goals and the purposes that I'm pursuing. I feel like God has me going in this direction. And that person could be stuck and not understanding that they also have goals and passions and purpose to pursue that are godly. And that could be a call for them to start seeking that in themselves. And that could be in a totally different direction than you. Yeah. And so those are ways that you can end a relationship, by being honest about the direction you're going in. And hopefully they're honest about the direction that they're going in, and recognize, hey, we may not have a tight or close relationship that we once had, but life is lifing and we're going in two different directions. But I really think that ending bad relationships is pivotal to you doing the work of the Lord. And you doing the work of the Lord is pivotal for you having the life that he wants you to have. And what happens is, God knows the gaps that are created in your life when you change direction. And so he'll bring godly people into your life that he wants you to forge a relationship with. And that relationship may be part of the path that he has you on. Or it may be for nonsensical entertainment, right? It could be just for fun, for joy, just for living life abundantly. But I do really think that the Holy Spirit puts people in our life for relationships. And then, if that's not easily identifiable, you put yourself in spaces where you can build relationships, in spaces where you think like people are. You can be in a space that, like, if you're always going to the place that you used to go to when you're in college, you're going to keep getting the same kind of people that you're trying to mature out of, So you may need to change your environment, change the places that you have entertainment or do business. And you'll start seeing people that may be ahead of you in a path, that may be like you in personality traits or character. And you can say, hey, I really like this environment, and I like the people in this environment. And then friendships can happen in that way as well.
No, I think that's vital. All of that you just laid out, I want to unpack a little bit more. So like I've absolutely had relationships that are like they just have to end, right? Like it sadly, I came back from Colorado different. Like relationship with God was a part of my life, but it wasn't the focal point of my life, I would say, because I was 17, 18 years old. When I came back from Colorado at 22, well, technically came back from Mexico, God was number one. Like he was what my life was really all about. And I realized that I had friends that were closer to the not Christian at all side of the spectrum, that when I was kind of in the lukewarm category, we're still really close to each other. Right. So it was really easy to kind of bridge that gap and all that. But the further I got towards like seriously crazy about God, the more that gap just created really weird awkwardness. And so like I try to view some of those relationships as evangelistic, and I think that there is room for evangelistic relationship. Like I don't think that every friend you have needs to be a Christian. But what I started to notice is like every time I would try and hang out with this person, the temptation for me to dip back into some of their apathy, some of the language that they would use, the things that they found funny, all those things. Like it was one of those where it was like, I think, we're in two different places, and I'm leaning more towards where they are
more than they're conforming
than they're turning towards me. And so like it was one of those where it was like, you know what, this relationship, I think it just needs to just go its way. And of course I'm non-confrontational, so basically I just stopped hanging out. Like like I didn't have like a good conversation.
And they got the point.
That's what I did wrong, right? It was just like, oh, Brent hasn't responded to these 18 text messages. That's weird. And so I ghosted people, which is not healthy. It's not good. I was immature. I didn't know what I was doing.
I've had those moments.
But hopefully I've grown since then. But so I definitely think that there's space in our lives for both things to be true. That there's some relationships that they just have to end because they're negative influence. Like I realized at one point, and I got to be careful what I'm saying. Hopefully none of my friends are listening to this, but like I was hanging out with some friends, and all they were doing was talking negatively about their spouse. they were just going on and on about, oh, and I hate it when she does this, and I hate how she does this. She's always nagging about this. And it was just like this super negative conversation. And literally sitting in the car with them, we were driving somewhere, and I'm sitting in the car, and I was like, this is the last time I'm hanging out with them. Like, I made the decision in my mind, like I can't do this. I love my wife. Right. And it really got awkward at one point, because then they were like, how come you're not saying anything about your wife, Brent? I was like, I love my wife. She's amazing. I'm the most lucky man in the world. I am so blessed. Like, there's nothing that I want to complain about.
Right. I even love her flaws.
Yeah.
I wouldn't trade her flaws for somebody else's, good things that they do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like there was a hard moment of like, I got to let go of some friendships that I've had for a really long time. Because what they're concerned with, their priorities in life are not my priorities in life. Yeah. And then when it started to get into this just becomes a bashing session of spouses. It's like, no, I'm not playing that game. And so I had to separate. And so somebody listening to this right now, they may be in one of those places where they've got some friendships, some relationships that they feel like they need, because if I get rid of these friendships, I'm going to be lonely. I'm going to be isolated. But an unhealthy friendship is not worth it. Like the negative of not having them as a friend is not nearly as bad as the negative that comes from staying with that person. When every time you're with them, it's pulling you down. It's like I was trying to counsel somebody one time, where they were talking about how all these failed relationships, dating relationships, and abusive men, and all of this stuff. And somehow we got talking about where she finds these guys, because she's like, they're all the same. They're all the same. I'm like, well, where did you meet your last 3 boyfriends? And all 3 were at a bar. It's like, if you keep picking up guys at bars, and then you're like, I don't know why he's an alcoholic. Like, I mean, maybe try not picking up a guy at a bar if you're not looking for somebody that doesn't like alcohol. Like
he's a substance abuser. Why? How?
I don't understand how I got in this place. And I'm sitting there just going, really? You don't see the connection here?
Right. Yeah.
And so like we've got to be taking that into friendships. Like, we got to be careful, like, of where all of our friendships are coming from. And that's why, earlier I said you need to have more relationships with church people. And I'm not going to say that if you're a member of CLC, all of your friends have to be from CLC. Yeah. Like, no, man, like there's other great churches out there, like, but finding somebody that loves God.
Yeah. It's like character that you're looking for.
That's what you need. And so, for context of here at CLC, like, for somebody that's looking for friends, go to events, like, spend time in the lobby.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hang out at our our cafe exists to create space for people to hang out.
Yes.
Like, we don't make money off of the cafe.
Not at all.
Like, any profit that comes from the cafe actually goes straight into the Hope Center for missions.
Outreach.
But even then, like, I think for our first year or 2 of operation, we lose money on the cafe.
Mm-hmm, right.
Like, we spend more than it brings in, and we do that with a smile. Like, we're okay with that.
Yes, because we want to cultivate friendships.
Because we're trying to create space for people to connect.
Yep.
We would rather you connect at church than connect at the bar, right? Like, it's so, like, whatever we can do to create those spaces. So come to events. Over the summer we do our first Wednesdays. They're hangout times. They're fun events. But we also do, we've got prayer meetings, and we've got church services, and we got small groups, and we got all of these things. But if you're looking for friendships, but you're not going to where people are, you're kind of missing out.
Right. Yeah. Like this Saturday, we got our men's event, June 22nd.
That's right. Bags and barbecue. Thank you for that,
yes,
that reminder.
If you got, yeah. So
can I bring my son? Bennett wants to come, and I was like, it's a men's thing.
He's a man.
He's a boy. Jaden doesn't want to come.
He might win Bennett may win the bags tournament.
He is quite athletic.
So
we'll see.
He may do that, but yeah, I think that's a good thing to do is look at our events. I was talking to one guy about the event that's coming up, and the conversation shifted to other activities that this guy was doing. And he rides his bike, but he does it on a more professional level than I. Like, he's riding 30, 40 miles, and I'm like, I'm just riding 3 miles down to the ice cream shop and back home. So, but he was like, yeah, we should go bike riding together. And I'm like, okay, Carlton, you know what kind of person you are.
Yeah.
So this guy invited you for a bike ride. So I said, okay, Pastor Asa, you bike ride, and you are the person that can cultivate a friendship better than me. So if I add you to this mix, then
chance of success.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm like, okay, good. So I did that, and so now we have potential to have a good event together with the 3 of us, because I know what kind of person I am, but I know there's another person at church who can do this better than me. So let me link with that guy.
Yeah.
And then the three of us can have a great time.
That's awesome. And that's what happens when you hang out in the lobby.
Absolutely.
Right? Which is why Asa was like, Carlton, get your butt in the lobby.
Yes.
Right? No, but I think that this is good. And the idea of coming to events, being around church people, hanging out, not just coming in, sitting to a sermon, and then leaving, but actually standing around awkwardly, and that's going to be harder for some people than others.
Yeah.
Like my wife can walk into a crowded room and meet 18 people. I can walk into a crowded room and meet no one. Like, it doesn't matter how many people are there. So, your mileage may vary, but go to events, hang out around people, start conversations. The other thing that I would say is life groups, our small group system. Like, my wife and I, we did a small group for families for several years. We actually, this year we had to stop doing it. Just our schedules just got too crazy to maintain. But we've got a text thread with the group. Yeah. And we still so the Sunday where Pastor Asa was an Oompa Loompa, like I took some screenshots of that and I'll send it to that group because he's in it. And we had a great time laughing. And we haven't even gotten together as a group in a year. And yet there's still friendships, there's still relationships. When we see each other in the church, we're talking, we're hanging out. There's still relationship that's built there. We're going to try and get them all together over the summer and all that. So life groups is a great place for it. The other place, honestly, is serving on a dream team. And I know this is starting to feel real churchy, but I'm just telling you what has worked in my life. Where friendships happen for me has been in these places. And serving together, my closest friend, even today, our friendship started in youth ministry. Yep. And then we were serving in kids. It was Kids Town at the time. And so we were serving in children's ministry together and hanging out with little kids and bouncing balls off their heads. It was tons of fun.
Yeah. When I was an offering steward, we used to fight over the schedule because we wanted to be with our group. Yeah. So bad because we had such tight relationships in that group. We're like, no, you can't take off because they'll substitute one of us and move things around. It's like, no, don't do that. We need to be together. Yeah,
exactly. And that's how, probably not every dream team functions that way, but I know a lot of them do. Yeah. I love it when I see a group of our ushers or our greeters just kind of sitting around talking and hanging out. They're not talking about work or ministry related stuff. They just connected with each other. Right. I went to the event at the Hope Center. And this is a couple months ago, and a bunch of our A team, so our volunteers that work the phones for the church, were there together.
Wow, that's nice.
They're not serving anything. Right. It was literally just to take a tour and stuff. But they're like, "Hey, you want to go? Yeah, I'll drive." And so, friendships really get created when you do spend time serving with one another. And the great thing about that is when you go through Growth Track and get plugged into the right dream team, you're doing it based on how God has wired you. What you're passionate about, what you enjoy. Well, that's the great recipe for friendship, right? You have things in common, right? And so I think, this is super churchy right now, but go to church, get into the lobby and hang out, get into a life group, serve on a dream team. These are things where it creates space, it creates opportunity for you to have the right relationships.
Very nice.
The one thing that we didn't really answer with all that, though, is if you've got a relationship that's not the greatest, can you fix it? Can you make an unhealthy relationship healthy?
You can. I don't want to give anybody a false hope that they can fix the relationship because it usually takes fixing someone. And I don't want to tell someone to go out and fix their friends.
Yeah, and there's two dynamics to this. There's you and the other person.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. But I'm sure that in the relationship with them, you've led by example. If your character has changed or you've, have transformed your personality to be more Christ-like, and they're still lagging behind in that area or haven't gotten to that point yet, or don't even realize it, may not have salvation. Being able to fix someone is hard to say. I think that you can do some things to let the other person know that you've changed. Yeah. And that you've changed for what you consider to be good in your life. Yeah. And that hopefully that person sees that change and say, hey, maybe some of those changes I need in my life, and that will be good for me in my life. Yeah. But I don't want anyone to think that they can go in and fix someone.
I 100% agree. I think trying to fix yourself is hard enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I do think that relationships can be mended. Yeah. I think if there's sometimes relationships are bad because of a misunderstanding, miscommunication, or because you did something stupid.
Yeah.
Right. And so if it's on your end, like one of your first points on Sunday, maybe it was your first points, is that friendships require godly attributes.
Yeah.
Right. Like when you're embodying those godly attributes, when you're walking in the fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah.
When you've got patience and joy and kindness and gentleness and all of this, when you go into a relationship that's maybe messed up, that maybe you said the wrong thing, you did the wrong thing, you didn't show up when somebody needed you, the Christian thing is to go and to apologize and to say, hey, I know that this relationship is damaged because of something that I did or something I said.
Right.
And, I don't know that I can ever make it up to you and make it better than it was before, or even get it back to where it was before. But I just want to own my part in this.
Yeah.
And say, I'm sorry. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think if there's any chance for relationships to be healed, I think it does start with leading with those godly attributes of being the person that God created you to be.
And having those tough conversations, you know, like you said, those tough conversations could help identify miscommunication or bad interpretations, or just a wrong, and an apology comes, and then the relationship is mended.
Yeah.
Or the tough conversation could lead to an understanding that, okay, we are morally different.
Yeah.
And, we probably can't continue our relationship as it was with the stark difference that we have.
Yeah.
And that could be a deal breaker, especially if you are a believer and you think that you're slowly compromising your salvation to be friends with the person.
Yep.
And so, and those are moments that I think the Holy Spirit shouts at us and says, okay, this relationship may need to end.
Yeah. And here's what's beautiful about that is I've actually seen those hard conversations go in an amazing positive, where it's like, I talked with somebody recently where they had a friendship. They're like, I'm serious about my faith, and they're not. They're like, so I got to tell them that I can't spend as much time with them anymore. And they had this hard conversation. They talked about, hey, my faith is the most important thing for me, and I want to surround myself with people that also care about their faith. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it was like a light bulb moment for this other person. It was like, I'm not taking my faith as seriously as you are, but I want to. Could you help me?
Right.
And then they ended up bringing them to church. They introduced them to me, and it was like, hey, this is my friend. I keep telling them about the church. I keep telling them about God, and they're like, you know what? I need to go. I need to change my life.
Wow, that's brilliant.
It's like, man, that's a really cool moment. It doesn't happen for everybody, but I think that there is space for that to take place. So nice. So I guess for anybody listening right now, if you got a messed up relationship, spend some time in prayer. Is this a relationship that you need to let go of? Is it dragging you in the wrong direction? Do you have friendships right now that are influencing you in a negative way? And if they are, you need to cut them off.
Right.
If you're in a relationship right now and it's not healthy, it's not good, but it's something that you did, be the Christian in the relationship and go and apologize. Mend that relationship. And maybe somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, man, I've got a friend that I haven't reached out to. Maybe this podcast is a reminder for you to make that phone call,
right?
To shoot that text, to reach out to somebody. And, for somebody that's listening to the podcast and you're desperate for these kind of relationships, get into church.
Yep.
It's the best advice I can give you.
And we're not complete jerks.
We're not complete jerks. We have a weird view of friendships that is probably not entirely healthy. It works for us, but we're growing.
Yes.
But please don't hear Carlton say, I don't have friends, and think he actually means it.
Right.
He just doesn't know how to define the relationships that he has, that we have, of people we care about that care about us.
Yeah, and I have told myself this year, I'm going to be comfortable doing the hard thing. Like we have to do the hard thing. So I encourage people to come up to me. I say, hey, when you see me, give me a bump, put your arm around me. Yeah. Like I want people to force me into those conversations. So
same
I'm not trying to back out from it or try to hide or duck or get away from it. I want somebody to come up to me and talk to me.
I would love to hang out. I just need somebody to make it happen.
Yeah, push me in that direction.
Because I'm probably not going to be thinking about it.
Yeah. Well, we'll be at Bags and Barbecue this Saturday, so that'll be a good opportunity for us.
Good stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Carlton. Well, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for preaching yesterday.
That was fun.
Of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Go see it if you haven't.
It's a really good movie.
Excellent.
It's a lot of fun.
Yep.
Just don't kill anybody.
At least not today.
All right. Anyways, with that, we're out of here. We'll be back next week. We're talking about A Million Miles Away. A really cool story of the first immigrant farmer turned astronaut. So that'll be a fun one.
Awesome.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
All right, guys. We'll see you later.